of 6 from the tribe. Oh, there's Crystal. I know you, Crystal.
It's like here.
Okay.
I might mute myself.
Okay, what will probably happen is along the way, because there's so many people here, we're probably going to muting people out, and just so we can kind of control this. Keep your tablet or computer or phone, whatever you're on, in a mute state, only because you get too much paper rustling around, it becomes problematic. So at this point, I think we have everybody here that we were expecting for the most part. So I'd like to at this time call to order the Town of Ledger, Connecticut special joint meeting of the Community Relations Committee and the Mashantucket Tribal Nation Social Justice, Equality, and Inclusion Committee. Just for the record, so everybody understands, since this is an official town meeting, all town meetings are recorded for prosperity. At this time, I'd like to call to order, and I'm going to go through and really quick here. Roxanne, you're here. Councilor Soms.
I'm here, Mike.
Councilor
I'm here.
Ingalls, thank you.
I'm here.
Note for the record, we have, bear with me because I'm going through some names here. Councilor McGrattan. Thought Linda was on here.
She's down here.
Councilor Davis, Chairwoman Davis. And I'm going to go through and ask for an introduction with the record that Roxanne's on here. This is a little different, so just bear with me on this. I'm sorry. I love doing these types of meeting. They're really fun. So at this point, I like to have a list of people from the tribe, and I'm not sure how best to do this. I can go through off the list I have and ask. I'll ask each of the counselors to go through. I'll go myself. For those who may not know me from the Tribal Nation, my name is Mike Washington. I'm town council, of course. I lived in Ledyard for approximately, I don't know, since '74. So I've been here a little while. Same house. Grew up here, the whole 9 yards. By trade, I'm a civil engineer. Work for the state of Connecticut, overseeing heavy highway and construction. So we get stuck in traffic. Think of me. That was with my assistance. I've been on the town council. This is my second term running, being on the town council. And with that, I'm going to go to Bill Soms, no particular order.
Thanks, Mike. Good evening, everybody. I'm Bill Soms. I'm also on the town council, been serving since approximately 2008. Can't really remember. Lived in town since 1988, same house as Mike. Not the same house, but I'm in the same house. Anyway, raised 2 kids, married. Both kids went through Ledyard High Schools. We love Ledyard. Have some good friends in the tribe, and happy to make some new ones tonight.
Next, Andra Ingalls. Councilor Ingalls.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Andra. I don't know what you really want to know. I'm a mom. I have 4 grown children. I've been on the council, I think, since 2015. I've lost track. I don't know. It's my 3rd term. And just looking forward to getting to know you and working together for both of our communities.
Thank you. At this point, Chairwoman Davis for the town council.
Oh, sure. I'm Linda Davis. I'm the chair of the town council. I've been here forever. I'm not a native, but of Ledyard, but I've been here since the 70s, almost about the same as you, Mike, and lived in the same house. Well, not quite. At any rate, I've been around a while, so I'm just sitting in on your meeting tonight from a couple of aspects, one being the chair of the council, the other being the work I do for the Ledyard Food Pantry.
Thank you. At this time, Councilor McGrattan.
Like Linda, I have been here forever. I am not a native. I come from New York City. I have 6 children. They all went through the Ledyard school system. And I really just enjoy listening to and hoping to gain something by the exchange between the tribe and the town council.
At this time, my son. At this time, Roxanne, just give the let everybody know what you do for us.
Yes, hello, my name is Roxanne Marr. I support the Ledyard Town Council. I've been doing that since 1996, and looking forward to working with all of you.
Thank you. And next on this list I have in front of me, I know there's a Mary Beth. You're on mute, Mary. You're muted.
Here we go. Okay, hi, I'm Mary Beth Hubbard. I've met some of you. I'm the mayor's assistant and social service coordinator. I've been here since 2016. I also grew up in Ledyard. My parents still live here. So yeah, I'm looking forward to working with all of you as well.
Oh, thank you. Now I'm going to go off a list I have, so bear with me. I'm going to do it in the order I have on the list that was provided kindly. Mr. Butler.
Thank you, Michael, and thank you all for having us on this joint call and making a commitment to working together. Roddy Butler. I actually am not a resident of Mashantucket or Ledyard. I grew up in Montville, over on the Mohegan cousin side of the river, and lived in Ledyard for a short period of time, and now I'm out in North Stonington. But I've been on the tribal council for 17 years. And I've been chair for the last almost 10. And so it's been quite a run, and it's, it's interesting to think about the history, and we'll get into this in the conversation, but, this is the first time that we've had a kind of collective council interaction. I mean, I've had time with various mayors, and so have some of the other council members. Departments have had interactions with departments, and education, our education chair has met with the Educate Board of Ed as well. And so, but this is the first time in my recollection that we've actually even come close to getting together as council. So looking forward to the conversation this evening.
Oh, thank you. I'm terrible with some names here. Shaquana Sebastian.
Hi, I'm Shaquana Sebastian. I'm the chairwoman of the Mashantucket Pequot Tribal Nation Youth Council, and I am also an assistant for the Secretary of Tribal Council, Matthew Pearson.
Thank you. Daniel Minahan. Daniel, unmute, please.
I'm trying to unmute. It's different than Zoom. But my name is Daniel Minahan. I'm Mashantucket Pequot Tribal member. I am also been a resident taxpayer of Ledyard on and off since I was 18. So over 21 years now in Ledyard. Went to almost every school in Ledyard, including Juliet Long. I haven't attended the middle school, but the Ledyard Center School. But outside of that, I attended every school within Ledyard, including all the way up to the high school. Got multiple friends within Ledyard, played multiple sport teams, represented the towns in some of the all-star teams within the sports, etc. But yeah, I have friends within Ledyard, a lot of friends, longtime friends. Some people I actually have as extended family, whether they're Pequot or not. So looking forward to working together to better both communities.
Thank you. Crystal Whipple.
Hi, my name is Crystal Whipple. I'm a Mashantucket Pequot tribal member. I've served my nation for the past 10 years. I have been a resident in Ledyard, Mashantucket, and North Stonington. I went through the town of Ledyard School, so 6th grade up to graduation from Ledyard High School. I have 4 sons. They have all been in and out of the Ledyard public school system also. I'm looking forward to the positive changes that we can all make for both of our communities.
Thank you. Angelina Casanova.
Hi, I'm Angelina Casanova Bell, and I'm the National Legislative Affairs Manager for the tribe. And although I'm located in Baltimore, almost 16 years, I believe, I grew up on the reservation, and I went to Gallup Hill and Ledyard Middle for some time. And I'm happy to be a part of this team and to meet with you all today.
Teresa Bell. Please unmute, Teresa. I think you're still muted. Oh. Here you go.
Let's see.
Yep. Oh.
Okay. Keeps going to mute.
I think she's good now.
I can't. I'm sorry.
Is there any way we can help her out?
Yeah, I'm trying to unmute her. Try it now.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So I was muted on your end. I kept hitting the same button. I said, why doesn't that work? Okay. Teresa Bell, and I'm with the Tribal Elder Council on the reservation. And I've done many things with the tribe. I graduated from Ledyard as well. My daughter graduated from Ledyard. I have a granddaughter that graduated from Ledyard, and I've been around for a long time. And my family's been here for many, many years. And I hope we can work together and make some changes for us all.
Thank you. Lori Potter.
Hi, everyone. I'm Lori Potter. I'm the Director of Public Affairs for the Mashantucket Pequot Tribe, and I am a parent, a wife, resident of Ledyard for, since 1996. Both of our sons went through the Ledyard school system, and as of January 1, I became a resident of Mashantucket, so I've moved a little bit over just across the border there, but still very invested in this region. And I look forward to seeing what we can do to all work together and come to form some really positive relationships and make good things happen for both communities moving forward.
Perfect. Thank you. And there is a Jody. I'm not sure Jody last name. But...
Hi, I'm Jody Cummings. I'm the general counsel for the tribe, recent transplant to the area from Washington, D.C. So nice to be here with you all.
Thank you. Did I miss anybody by chance? I think I got everybody. Okay, perfect. Thank you. Okay, this time I'd like to kind of get down into, as everybody knows, I'm going to back up a little bit. Back on June 13th, there was a Black Lives Matter event that took place in town. It was a march, and through those there was issues that came up, and out of that regrew, or should I say reformulated, this committee for the town council side, which had kind of sat dormant for a bit. And at this point, knowing that there were some things that were brought up concerning the social services, police, and general services, the idea was, since we are having been here since '74, we are very much interlaced community. You know, that's just the nuts and bolts of it. Everybody, as people have said, we all have friends that cross both sides. You know, I was here in '74, so it was Hayward's for me, because that was my year. Teresa, if she remembers, we graduated from the same class, if I'm correct. We won't say what year. It goes back a ways. But the point being is that we're all in this collectively. And so the hope with this group is those things that we can kind of get around, get hold of, things that are issues for both the tribal members and the tribe and the town and the people in the town, that we can kind of, through discussion and dialogue and just an understanding of how processes work, come to a better understanding that allows there to be less of a I won't call it an adversarial atmosphere, but it should be no different than going over to your neighbor's house if you're going to get a service or whatever it is. It should be, people should be comfortable about the town. People from the tribe should be comfortable. People in the town should be comfortable. It should not be this difficult in this day and age. So that being said, one of the things I think Roxanne, we put together kind of just because we know we had an issue recently on social services. I'm gonna take a little bit of lead here, so bear with me. And that sparked a lot of issues. I know that Mayor Fred had a chance to talk to Mr. Butler, and they seem to be pretty much with an understanding. And so what we asked the mayor to do, and he, unfortunately, because of his schedule and the speed at which we want to make this happen, because we wanted to get this group together as soon as possible. Fred isn't able to be here. It'd be nice if he could, but I needed this group together. That being said, we had posted with the minutes for tonight a kind of a memorandum of understanding on the social services, and I'd like to start with that, and then we can talk about general services, and we can also lead into wherever it takes us. Anybody who has the table's wide open. Okay, nothing is off the table. If it's something that the Community Relations Committee can act on, progress on, move forward, I'm all for discussion. Unfortunately, things on the school board side falls out of our preview. So if it's a school board related issue, I can bring it back as a liaison with the school board relations committee, but that's the right avenue for that. But I'd like to, if everybody's agreeable, start with the social services side and just see if we can get an understanding on that. I think we have Mary Beth Hubbard here. Roxanne, we had we included a memo of understanding in the notice,
The agenda pack.
in the
Yes.
packet. Has everybody had a chance to read that or just peruse it to some level by chance? Because we can talk about, we can take time now to go read through it. I can read through the document if that's agreeable to people.
Well, yeah, Michael, if I could, just before we get to that, honestly, I haven't seen that document, and so it'd be good to go through that. And I think you certainly hit some of the high level concerns and opportunities, quite frankly. I think similar to what you're suggesting at the social services level, I think we need that at a community level as well. Because for us, and you really hit the nail on the head with the structure of the town makes it complicated for us to address the multitude of issues that we have, being that some of the issues we go to the departments, some we go to the mayor, some we go to the town council, some we go to the superintendent. So I think if there's a way to outline at the highest level, those focal points of where we should be communicating through, and if this is the body to do that, then we should formalize that in some way, shape, or form, so that the council's beyond us and the chairman and the mayor beyond myself and Fred, we're not in this all over again, because we've had these conversations and dialogues in the past and they've been great. Speaking of the school board, we had an incredible relationship with Dr. Grenier, right? I can't say that's the same with the current superintendent, and it's not that it's good, bad, or indifferent, but it's not the same. But it shouldn't change as the players change. It should be some level of consistency, given that both of our communities have been here for hundreds of years and we're going to be here for hundreds more. So I like diving into the social services point, but I don't want to lose that point that I think the bigger takeaways should be that we have to come to a broader level of agreement and understanding as two partners.
Yes, just to give you an understanding for the Community Relations Committee, what we do is we're still kind of working on the mission portion, and the reason for that is we really want to get a strong flavor of what the town, as far as the town side goes, and this was to really pull together, and there's going to be more meetings, rest assured, only because this is really an information gathering process and throwing things out there to stick on the wall. Rodney, I believe I'm completely in agreement with you on having that overall format, but just to give you an understanding, the community relationship group, anything that we propose or want to move forward, it ultimately has to go in front of the whole town council.
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
So
Same and similar, and Michael, similar form. We're three, and maybe that's a probably a good starting point, right? So we're three members of the tribal council out of 7, and in similar form, we're a subcommittee. And yeah, don't get lost in the title of chair or counselor or former vice chair. We're just members of 7. It's a democratic process, and my vote is the same as Danny's. I mean, as Councilor Menahan, as the same as Crystal's, as the same as Vice Chairwoman Clough, who's not here. And so whatever conversations we have, they're not codified until we bring them back to our tribal council and we have a democratic vote, just like you have with your town council. So, but by no means was I suggesting that there's any pressure on your committee that whatever you guys say, we're going to hold you to it. It just, I think that both subcommittees working together and collaboratively can build the basis for something that both larger councils, your town council and our tribal council, could agree upon. That's all.
well, no, I agree. And I think for me, part of this process is we have all these different groups, and not each, ultimately, if there's and I'm going to rely on Chairwoman Davis in the town council on this part, as issues that come up in the town, the best place to first take that issue to is wherever it originates at. Okay, so if there's a problem with, just bear with me on this, if there's a problem with I don't know, the dog warden, I'll use something with, or a particular, I'll use social services because it's out there. Once it's been brought to social services and there's I won't call it an impasse, but there's an issue, then at that point, I think that's something that's great to bring to the community relations committee. Okay, but there's also the ability to step up to the town, to the mayor, because that service works under the mayor. Okay, so ultimately, stop me if I'm wrong, Linda, on this one. Everything flows up to the mayor, then out to the town council. Rodney, to try to answer your question, I think trying to grab that framework right now is going to be not so much that it's difficult. It's just that trying to grab a hold of what the topics are that are concerned, and then from that build out. And it won't be done tonight. This is really about an information gathering type, and build out from that how that process would flow on our side, on the town side, and how we fit into that. And that's one of the reasons for having this meeting. And Bill and Andre, go ahead, Andre, jump in.
I wonder if there's an organizational flow chart that exists already in print that shows the hierarchy of who reports to who. Because I think I understand what Rodney's asking for. And I think it would be a great thing to get out to the entire community, Ledyard Gales Ferry residents, our tribal members, so that everybody knows. I think, honestly, based on what I've been hearing for the past many months, I think what Rodney just asked about is a major sticking point and point of frustration, is that when people have a legitimate problem, grievance, frustration, they don't even know who is the first person they can go talk to. And it leaves people feeling a little lost, overwhelmed. It is a complicated system, and especially if you're not used to operating with your local government or your local school system. So if there is an organizational flow chart of who reports to who, I think that would be a phenomenal thing to make sure that it's updated and out there. And then we can define roles so people know who is the director of social services, what are the kinds of things that fall under this category. When do you go to the school? When do you go? So anyway, that's it. Organizational flow chart.
Thank you, Andre. Go ahead, Linda.
The town charter pretty much spells out the organizational flow chart. For an example, to Rodney's point, maybe more specifically, social services, the town council has very little to do with social services. That's the mayor's department. He is the head of social services. We can help facilitate, and I think that's what we would like to do. But we are the legislative body. The mayor runs the town. Now, as luck would have it, the mayor is out of town, which makes me the mayor. So that puts us in a whole new ballgame here.
Well,
So
let's
who would
just get
you
a whole
like,
bunch of
folks?
well, let's get a lot of stuff done tonight.
So there should be a hurricane this week. That usually happens. But to my point, that specific department, the council has very little. The other thing that a lot of people don't realize, because I get emails all the time with either complaints or concerns about the Board of Education or the school system, is that the Board of Education is an agency of the state. We have no oversight, with one exception, their budget. But otherwise, we have no oversight of the Board of Education. I type the words, the Ledger Town Council has no oversight. They are an agency of the state many, many times. I hate to put it off like that, but that's the way it works in the state of Connecticut.
Yeah.
But anyway, hopefully that clears up a couple things.
Yeah, Linda, that was helpful, and that we learned that the hard way. We had a really good conversation with Mayor Fred, and Mary Beth was there, and she was very helpful in walking through a lot of the concerns that we were having, and quite frankly, some of the public debate that didn't really need to happen. And he made that point very clear as well, even as the mayor, which is just shocking to us in our structure, that even the mayor, other than budget, has little to no effect on the school system. And that's Connecticut. That's not just Ledger. So it was pretty fascinating.
Daniel, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, I would just say that because I definitely understand what people's hands are tied, but one thing that I would suggest is I wouldn't underestimate the ability to be of influence. And that's one thing, had we had more time, I would have shared with the mayor, is when you feel a certain way and you may not have the authority because of lack of position, when you are at such a high level, and I think everybody on this call is, you have the ability to be of influence when you're uncomfortable. So I think in some cases, the ask isn't to override, but when somebody shares a concern, and I'm not saying to go public and make a mess out of things, but would there's agree upon concern or even opportunity. I would hate to see an opportunity get wasted because there's not a decision maker in the room that still has the ability to take that opportunity and be of influence. So I would encourage both sides to influence positivity, equality in areas where they're not decision makers. None of us on this call would have the seats that we have currently without being of influence. So I would just leave us with that. We have the ability to influence, especially, and I think we actually have an obligation to be of influence. What our positions allows us to see things that we don't vote on. We still have that obligation to share with the public's interest, as long as we feel strongly about a stance. So in some cases, I think we have to start realizing, do we truly agree to the point where we're willing to step out and be of influence in areas that we don't make decisions? And as public figures, I think that's obligation.
Thank you, Daniel. Go ahead, Bill Soms.
Thank you, Mr. Washington. Mr. Menahan, totally agree with you. We are, despite our structure, we are a small town, and the tribe is not a huge organization, and we all live in the same town. Many of us know a lot of people, and I totally agree with you. We are in a position to influence as long as we don't cross lines that we shouldn't. But yeah, I mean, we all have relationships with each other, and we should exercise those and talk to each other. One of the things that's really starting to bother me about social media is that everyone is taking everything to social media instead of just picking up the phone and calling someone. So thank you for saying that.
Thank you, Mr. Soms. Just from the short amount I've taken out of this right now is what I'll do is I'll work with Roxanne because she can take care of just about anything and get a copy of the charter distributed out. So I think we'll send that out to the group so they can see that. I've tried to chase down a charter myself a couple of times and it's not always been the easiest thing to find, but that's just me looking. So would people be agreeable to get a copy of the charter? That way, kind of looking at it, the committee's going to take a look through it to see if it addresses what Mr. Butler was talking about as far as that hierarchy to make sure it's clear. And I think part of that is attaching names to that charter so that it's great to have that flow chart, but in absence of names, it doesn't do much good. And it should be something that's readily available to anybody. And that may be one thing that we could do in sense of the town website to just make it easy for everybody who is in the town to be able to go someplace, say, here's my issue. Who do I contact with the food chain versus going and trying to pick through the lines of different pages on who's where. I know I work for DOT. We're pretty large, Connecticut DOT. We're a pretty large organization, and we have a list of everybody's names. And then you click on a page, and there's a flow chart from the commissioner through me all the way down to the guy who's the low-level engineer who just started. So you can chase down who works for who all the way through the system really quick, and it makes people's lives so much easier. So thank you, Mr. Butler, for bringing that up. I wouldn't have thought about it because I'm so used, and this is what's great for me. So bear with me if I get a little excited because a lot of things I just know, so I don't think about the things I don't know. And so when someone says, and I got corrected by somebody recently about my knowledge isn't what everybody else's knowledge is, and I appreciated that reminder. So that was a great bit of information, and that would be great information to move forward with. That being said, I don't think we can, without the charter, Mr. Butler, I don't think we can address that portion.
Yeah, no. I was just, again, I was making the point more as an observation of things that we need to flesh out, and certainly not just in this meeting, but over time. Because I would hope that this is a regular occurring conversation that we're having between subcommittees and at some point with the broader councils as we continue those conversations with the mayor and the council, as well as the conversations we've had at the department levels. I mean, Mary Beth and Council Whipple could probably give you guys all an update of, following up from that conversation with the mayor. We said, look, there's something broken in communication with social services on both sides, so let's get together. And within the next week, both departments from Mashantucket and from Ledyard had a pretty productive conversation to talk about where we're at and start to build a foundation for how we want to operate moving forward, at least at the department level.
Now, I don't know if anybody would mind. Go ahead, Bill. Mr. Soms.
Well, I'm changing the subject a little bit, Mike. So go ahead with your thought. Thank you.
No, I'm kind of curious on the discussion of social services. I bear with me. I'm kind of engineer by design, so I tend to start focusing on things really quick. The discussion concerning the social services, I don't want to put anybody on the spot, but kind of elaborate that. We know we always get a lot of stuff secondhand, third hand, fourth hand coming through, and I'll be blunt. My knowledge of our social services in town are very limited because besides having given stuff to social services, it's never some place I've had to go and get a service from. And so my experiences with social services is completely different than someone who needs to go for a service. So I would be a terrible person to talk about the social services in town because I am completely inept about the knowledge and what they do for the most part. So would everybody be agreeable to go ahead, Bill?
Well, so I was just going to ask a question. Excuse me. Would it be okay with this group if we just hit the highlights of that MOU, which is only a 2-page document, and just verbally share it so that people anyone who hasn't had a chance to read it or at least familiar with it, and then we could move to the next step and try and get some agreement on this document, if not tonight, at a later time, at least in principle, because I think it's important that we do that. I think that we all agree on how we're going to serve our residents and our members.
I'd love to read it, and with the understanding that we're not making any kind of agreement on this tonight. but it gives the ability, as Councilor Soms was talking about, pulling out other people's opinion and perspectives on it, and they may, the document may be able to be easily something we've missed or not thought about in the document that may pop up during the discussion. But people be agreeable to that? I'll do what I love doing best, which is read. Okay, this is. Go ahead.
So Mike, I was going to suggest that we just hit the highlights, and I'd be happy to do that.
Oh,
and
thank
I was
you.
just going to kind of summarize the document rather than read it to everybody.
That would be great.
But basically, okay, so I'll just take a stab. Basically, it's an agreement that talks about how social services in both the Mashantucket Pequot Tribal Nation and the town of Ledyard will serve their members and residents. And basically it says the town of Ledyard residents will go to the town through social services. The Mashantucket Pequot Tribal Nation members will go, those who live on the reservation will go to the social services department of the tribe. And Mashantucket Pequot Tribal Nation members who live in the town of Ledyard, meaning their residents, they would also go through Town of Ledyard Social Services Department. And then the last thing it says is that the town and the tribe will stay in regular contact with each other, especially about referring a client to one of the other departments, just so we're all clear on what we think our agreement is and what we do with the food pantry and what we do with social services when someone comes in need of help. And personally, I think it's a great solution, and I'd like to see us talk about it.
Yeah, no, Bill, that's actually the direction that we were hoping with, at least with that particular conversation that we were headed. That's actually where we left the conversation with the mayor, and walked away with that understanding that would be how we would move forward. And then subsequently, there was a meeting with the social service departments to walk through exactly how that would work. And maybe just on that point, to give us a little more color, maybe Crystal or Mary Beth, you could talk about what came out of that meeting. And I'm assuming that it essentially aligns with what Bill had just laid out.
What he just shared is exactly what both social services departments gave descriptions of the services that they offer. We had talked about how in the past, former social service employees of both the town and the tribe have had a better working relationship in regards to coordinating services for tribal members. And so it was agreed upon and made very clearly, Mary Beth, correct me if I'm wrong, that tribal members who reside in Ledyard most certainly were eligible for Ledyard social services, and those who reside at Mashantucket would go to Mashantucket. If ever there were services could be coordinated between the two, that would happen, and they would continue to stay in touch moving forward.
Yep, exactly. And I think it's good that we're putting it in the MOU just so there's no confusion down the line. Because we're going by what we've been told in the past, and I have minutes from 2012, but that was a long time ago. So it's good that we have this going forward.
Yeah, and I guess the question for me, going back to the earlier point, and thank you, Linda, for pointing to the town charter, is that so if we were to identify an agreement like this, is it at the mayor's level? Could the mayor enter into his own agreement, or does he have to get it ratified by the council, or does the council do all agreements for the town go through the council? And that so, then this is the right place for that conversation.
So the council authorizes the mayor to sign contracts. The mayor is the ultimate signing authority, but the council authorizes him to sign. So this is something that the town council would vote on, and this committee is hoping to take it to the council and recommend it, I think.
Great.
So yeah.
That's helpful. Thank you, Bill.
Mr. Butler, as you kind of mentioned earlier, the idea of this being more of a continuous grouping would be very helpful for the town and for the tribe, just so everybody's on the same page. Just in general for the the biggest thing is the familiarity with other individuals helps to kind of put aside people's concerns and fears, and it's a much easier discussion when you're used to seeing certain people's faces all the time, or just you know the framework things are being worked under. So, someone's saying, "Go, oh, Mary, you're muted, Mary."
Yes, I'm here. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Oh, sorry, Mary McGrattan.
Okay, hold on.
Councilor McGrattan, sorry.
That's okay. All right. Since the MOU was written, have there been problems?
We don't currently have an MOU in place.
Yeah, this is just a draft.
Is that a proposal then that Bill just read?
Mary, it's a draft proposal. It hasn't even been vetted by the tribe yet. It's something that was put together for us to look at, so we could bring the issues that we're having with the social services, so everybody understands what the expectations are. So you don't have somebody on the tribal side fighting with a tribal member about something, or somebody from the town side fighting with a town member about a town person about somebody, or vice versa. So it's really clear, and it makes the people doing the social services, in my opinion, it makes their life a lot easier because they're both working from the same framework.
Sorry, I thought it was signed and that we would discuss problems with it.
No, this is
okay.
This is kind of a fallout from the issues we had with that took place with the social services, and trying to get both parties on the same page. Mayor Fred met with Mr. Butler, and this is really, I'm going to steal this from you, Mr. Butler. This is really a result of their group discussion, okay, and then the social services group getting together, and that's made this possible.
Okay.
So at some point, what will happen is this will go. People get a chance to kind of digest this, see if there's anything they want to modify, and then based on that, it'll come back. Then this group here will look at it, and the goal would be to get this group here in agreement on what the verbiage is, and then each group could take it to the prospective bodies, legislative bodies, to decide is it a yay or nay. And if there's something they don't like on it, they can amend it. But just like I'm looking here at a bunch of, we have a lot of counselors, and there's a lot of tribal people, members. So I think it'll move relatively quickly once it gets to where it needs to go. If it's typical for, as you know, for us, things go through committee. By the time it comes out of committee, it's usually, I won't say it's a no-brainer, but it's been vetted and it's beat up by everybody. So it's a good product when it finally comes out the door.
Okay.
Sorry for being long-winded. Go ahead, Mr. Meehan. Meehan, sorry.
I'm glad you said long-winded. We got two of them. I'm a long-wind too. The one thing that I would suggest we take time to try to understand the long-term impact is the choice of words or the way that we categorize any people. So I think that to say that tribal members go directly to the tribe, I think is the right language. I think when it comes to the taxed individuals within Ledger, I don't think that we need to create a subgroup. So I'd be careful about saying tribal members that are also taxpayers or position it that way. Because as a taxpayer, if I went to Ledger and I'm seen as a subgroup of a taxpayer, long-term, when it gets to being serviced, and then everybody on the phone right now is no longer of influence within the state politics, there's just a chance that it may have a negative impact long-term. So I'm wondering if we just create two branches, and that is taxpayers of Ledger, absolutely no subgroups, whether they're tribal or not, and really focus on the fact that that household is being taxed, and then have the tribal member branch, which would go to the tribe for. But if we spell it out in writing that we have taxpayers, we have tribal members that live in the town and pay taxes, we just created a subgroup of taxes. And I think that may be dangerous long term.
Yep, no, I agree.
And I only said that because I understand and I totally agree with the intent that's being discussed right now. So just so we're not part of the conversations and other have to pick up a couple generations from now, it'd be good just to kind of put it out there that this is one group of people. These are truly the taxpayers of Ledyard, regardless who they descend from, any other affiliations with any other nations or governments, just to keep it as one group of taxpayers.
I understand what you're saying. I'm kind of, for me on a personal level, I'm kind of trying to figure out exactly how that verbiage works, only because I'm not sure if this is something that's being done for the purposes of social services and trying to manage resources versus trying to label people in a certain group. I see a problem down the road, I grant you. Why it couldn't be as clear as to say if you're in this town of Ledyard that you can go to the town. If you're paying tax to the town of Ledyard, your property's being taxed by the town of Ledyard. Why can't you go to the town first if you choose to? I'm not sure if that was a function between the idea behind that was if we have an entity in the town of Ledyard and does the town and the tribal nation want that individual to access both resources? Because it may be a case where I'm just thinking down the road where that individual shows up and they go, since they're a little bit of a special window, bear with me as I try to walk this through my mind, that God forbid they're in a situation, they go to the tribe and the tribe, there's something they need. The tribe cannot meet that need, but the town of Ledyard can. It affords the social service person to say, hey, go to the town. The town's expecting you. I've contacted the social service person and they've got something over there to address this issue. Or it could be the other way around where the town says, we're light on something. I asked the social services from Mashantucket if there's something they can do in light of the resources, because we're trying to manage, you're trying to manage the resources. So I know what you're trying to say, but I can understand that, because if you're paying taxes, should you be able to just go to the town of Ledyard?
I mean, if not, you have to realize that one of the founding principles on this country was the fact of taxation, and without true representation, you shouldn't be taxed. So for me to pay equal taxes, and in some cases, I'll just be bold and say in some cases, I probably paid a lot more in taxes than most, definitely within my age group, possibly even some of their parents. So to have the ability to be taxed, but then to be considered of what's coming in outside of what I'm paying taxes on, I understand that, and I think if it's done carefully in a perfect world, I think it works right. And I am hopeful there'll be some teamwork moving forward. The drawback is long term. Would you take everybody in this conversation out of the mix and you let it run for 20 years? I'm still nervous that this may set tribal members up that are paying tax to be seen as a subgroup of taxpayers within Ledyard, just to be honest.
Nope, I understand. Go ahead, Mrs. Davis. She had her hand up.
Yeah, I'm not sure why we're discussing taxpayers, because I happen to be in my spare time. I work as a volunteer supervisor at the food pantry. Why we serve way more than taxpayers. If somebody lives in Ledyard and they're renting a house, we service them. So I'm not sure why taxpayers even gets involved and why we even have to use the term taxpayers in any kind of memorandum. It's residents of Ledyard, which could be Mashantuckets, or what was the description of those that have to serve or serviced by the Mashantuckets? What is that description? Bill,
They
do you
live
have
in
that in there?
Yeah, if you live within the boundary of the reservation.
There. So it's that
basically
group.
It's your address. It's where you live.
It's
You
that
either
group
live on
and
the
it's
reservation.
residents of Ledyard. Period. We don't even have to get
Exactly.
involved with taxpayers.
It doesn't really talk about
Taxpayers was the wrong word, but I think we're on the same page. If
Yeah.
residents could be honored without the subgroup, so if it could just be, and I use the
Can I
I'm
just,
sorry. I do apologize for using the wrong word.
No, I just wanted to clarify because
But to your point,
I think we're making it more difficult than it needs to be.
yeah, and that's the point I was trying to make earlier. I think if you're a resident, you're just a resident. It doesn't matter if you descend from Mashantucket or not. As a resident, you should be entitled to what residents receive.
Correct.
Yeah. I think where it came from, Mr. Menahan, is it mentions whether you live on taxable property in the town of Ledyard, which is different than being a taxpayer. To Linda's point, you can be renting a home on taxable property in the town of Ledyard. Therefore, you go to the town of Ledyard for social services. If you live within the boundary of the reservation and or non-taxable property, then you go to the reservation or to the tribe.
Yeah, and my usage of taxation or taxpayers was just based on what was read. If I had a chance to slow down and pick a word myself, I'd use the word resident. So I do appreciate the feedback.
do you have a copy
totally
of
understandable.
Danny? Does Danny have a copy?
Yeah, I haven't seen it on my side, Mary Beth, so I don't know if we
Okay.
received it.
Oh, so it was, sorry, everybody. A copy of it can be pulled off from the Roxanne. Could you
Meeting agenda.
from the meeting agenda? It was a link for that.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so no problem. But
It's going to be hard to figure out the wording until you actually read it, and then we can change some of the wording around.
yeah, the idea is to have this thing kind of smithed out so everybody can read it to make sure it says exactly what Mr. Manahan doesn't want it to do. So that it should be a case as Mary had stated, Councilor Davis has said, if you live, and Councilor Psalm said the same thing, if you live on taxable property in the town of Ledyard, you should be able to go to the town. And if you live on non-taxable property that's owned by the Mashantucket Tribal Nation, you should be going to the Tribal Nation first. Okay? Now, that doesn't, in my opinion, doesn't preclude down the road that the town is in a situation to afford other sharing of some of the services, but that's generations down the road. But I think that framework works. And if the social service groups are working well, the town works together, I think down the road it won't be an issue. It won't be an issue, but the verbiage here needs to be wordsmithed just a little bit. I agree. So I'm not gonna. So what I'll do is have everybody go take a chance, read this document. If you don't have it, what I'll do is I'll have Roxanne send it out to everybody just as a part of the end of this meeting. So you don't have to go chase it down. We'll make sure all the participants that we have emails for it. We'll send it out actually to Mrs. Potter, and she can, with the hope that she'll disseminate it for everybody.
Yeah, that'll work, Michael. Thank you.
No
Yeah,
problem.
I actually think that Chairwoman Davis made so much sense that if we actually all agree with her stance, there may not even be a need for documentation, paperwork. The way that she just spelled it out, it kind of protects all residents in a way where if that's what's going to be done and we have this conversation and we all get on the same page, I'm not sure that we need anything more than just a conversation.
Go ahead, Councilor Ingalls.
I think it would benefit everybody to have it in writing. I was on the Social Services Advisory Board years ago when John Rodolico was mayor. And, so I heard secondhand, thirdhand what the verbal agreement was. But then there are changes in leadership and communication doesn't necessarily get maintained at the same level. I think it just protects everyone in the long run if we agree and it's in writing and it's simple. I think we can all agree that it really is as simple as your residency and who owns that land. But I would like to see it in writing.
I agree with that. And I think as a participant in that meeting and with my social services director that's still with us that was in that meeting, we all left with different interpretations that, to your point, if we took the time to codify it, you know, we probably, well, I guess it would be unfortunate because we wouldn't be having this meeting today, um, but we wouldn't have had the miscommunications that we've had recently if it were codified. So I think it's important to do that.
Oh, definitely. So we'll make sure everybody gets a copy of this so they can read it in a paper status and really give a chance to wordsmith it. I think it does do exactly what Mr. Minahan was talking about and addresses what Chairwoman Davis was saying. It's reservation, taxable property. It's an easy thing. I think we need the document because if we didn't need the document, we wouldn't be having this meeting. And that's what, so that document would have, as Mr. Butler said, would have prevented this meeting taking place had we had it, say, 5 years ago, 8 years ago. People would understand, we've codified it, it's a living document, you know, it can be revisited every 3 to 5 years if need be, based on the situations. But it should be pretty straightforward. It shouldn't be something you need to revamp after 20 years. That being said, does anybody have anything else on this topic? Okay, now I'm open to talk about other topics, and I know the other one may possibly be relative to the police department. And I'm not sure. One of the things I only get bits and pieces, and as we've all played the phone game where, you know, you tell somebody something, it goes down the food chain 15 places, and it spits out a completely different story about what happened. And then there's the story that goes down the food chain that's correct all the way down the food chain, and you still don't like what comes out the other end. So that being said, I don't know if it's worth, at some point the plan, I think, and I'm not going to speak for Andre and sorry, Councilor Ingalls and Councilor Solms. I'm still getting used to saying that. Sorry. So excuse me. At some point, having sat down with the police chief of Ledyard, had an opportunity to sit with him for an hour and a half, and I learned a lot of things I did not know. And I'll be blunt, it was mostly good stuff. Okay. So I think one thing that might help, because I think police is another issue, because one of the things that came up during the conversation back in June was issues that people were having with police officers. Okay. And those issues may or may not be exactly as explained, but I think what would be nice to do is to have do an invite with the police chief at some point with the group to talk about how Ledyard does its services relative to the policing portion of it, so people have an understanding what the process is. Me, at my age, I'm 57. I'm not going to hide it. So my interactions are completely different than when I was in my teens and then in my early 20s. You know, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. So with that being said, I think there's some value to having that type of discussion. But at this point, I want to know, is there anything somebody wants to, this is an opportunity to talk about not so much bones of contention, because I think we're going to address what Mr. Butler talked about, getting that hierarchy, that flow chart to figure out who does what, so we can address that portion of it. And then from there, kind of feedback. But I'm trying to get a better understanding of all the issues that the group may have that we may or may not be able to address from this committee.
Yeah, Michael, one quick question, and this goes structural again. So similar to the Department of Ed or to the superintendent, does the police chief in Ledyard, in your new police structure and having your own department, does John report to Fred? Does John report independently to the council? Does John operate on his own entirely as an independent body? What is the structure of the police department?
Well, I would be remiss if I could tell you what I think I know what it is, but I'm going to ask Linda Davis, Councilor Davis, if she could give input, because my take would be that the chief of police answers to the mayor and the town council. I'm not sure who oversees who, but I know the town council oversees the mayor. So
The police chief reports to the mayor.
Okay.
And but as was pointed out, we still have great influence. We control their budget. And quite often, just like with the Board of Ed, if you control the budget, it gives you a little more control. But if the police, well, for instance, let's say the police chief wanted to purchase a, what was that thing they were fighting over in New London? That
Urban assault vehicle.
Yeah.
The assault vehicle. Let's say Chief Rich wanted to purchase an assault vehicle. He would have to come to the council because it's budgetary. So while he definitely is under the mayor or works for the mayor, we have great influence. So I think we can have that conversation. You know, I think we can have conversations about that. Would you agree, Bill?
Absolutely.
Yep. Okay.
That's helpful because we've had, and it's similar to what we recently did with social services. We've actually had ongoing dialogues with Chief Rich, and personally he's a great guy, great addition to the town, and an excellent police chief. And he's been very open to communicating with us. I think the issues that we've seen are more generational. And so it's not as simple as a policy change that's going to fix some of these things that we've been dealing with. And Danny and Crystal growing up in town, and even and Terry going back to we won't say the 70s, but going back some time, can tell you their experiences about what we've seen over the years. And so and things like that don't change with a new chief and don't change with a new policy. But certainly John is making an effort to do better. But one small example that we've talked to the chief about on multiple occasions. I'm not sure how many of you are familiar with our spiritual center on Shoeville Road. But we understand that there's concern about speeding on that road. At least that's what's stated to us as to why police are always parked there on the side of the road. And that's fine. We had this very candid conversation with Chief Rich about it, that absolutely safety is a priority for all of us, and our community just as much as it is in Ledyard. But if you are going to set up a speed trap on Shoeville, there's a million places to park, and probably places where there's more accident prone areas of Shoeville that you should be focused on. But if you are going to park, don't park on our spiritual center, right in our driveway of the spiritual center. And we have counselors that live in and around that area, and they literally will take a photo, and I'll send it immediately to the mayor and to chief and say, look, guys, how many times do we have to ask you not to park? Yes, you're 100% right. There is a right of way there, a setback of 10 feet that you could technically park in our driveway. But what other church would you do that at, right? You wouldn't do that in Ledyard, so why is it okay doing it for us? And even on Sundays, they've done it as well. And so that's just a small example of a lingering frustration, and something that, again, we've spoken on it on a few occasions, and it seems to keep happening. And so, and then there's much bigger issues that happen. And I think you saw some of that frustration during the events back in June, Michael. I don't know if you were there, but and seeing some of the interactions with some of our youth who had been, having those issues with the police within town, from feeling targeted and feeling attacked for decades, whether it was as youth or in high school, and now as young adults. And of course, there's a lot of emotions involved in everything that's going around the country as well. It's kind of brought that all to a head. But these are certainly generational issues that, again, some sort of understanding, even in policing, similar to what we've just talked about in social services, could probably help us all.
I agree.
Chairman Washington?
Yes, I can't see.
Yeah. It's Bill. I just wanted to respond to Chairman Butler's comment about changing chiefs, and you hit on a note that has been of note to me for years, and that is, speaking for myself, one of the reasons I so strongly wanted to see the town go independent with its police force was because sometimes every year we had a different resident trooper, and the resident troopers all ran the department differently, and we really didn't have any control over that at all, other than the budget, as Chairman Davis said. But we worked very hard to get Chief Rich here to Ledyard. He was originally a resident trooper, and he left, and we worked hard to get him back specifically because we wanted to have some consistency and some continuity from a person who would lead like he leads. And the difference in the department has been phenomenal. And I totally agree with you that some of the experiences have been generational, but things that the older generations, including myself, remember as experiences with Ledyard Police are from that old structure under the Resident State Trooper program. And it was not great. And I think it's a lot better now. I hope it is, and that's why one of the reasons we wanted to go to an independent department is to improve the department, the way it serves the residents, and the way they all do their job. We know that the officers feel better about it. We want the town members and the residents and everyone who travels through the town to feel the same way. So again, thank you for saying that. And I think there's a lot we can do, and we have a lot more opportunity to do that now.
I think as we go through and have more conversations, particularly with the police department, and granted it's a relatively new police department, given that the way the structure is set up, it provides the opportunity to do what needs to be done, which really is a cultural change within the department. And we have an individual, I believe, is in a position to make that happen. But unfortunately, I also have to say that it's going to be a slower shift than probably I would like. But I think it's something it's going to continuously change. Having talked with him myself at length, I think we're definitely headed in the right direction with the right individual. So, but I understand your problem, your concern, Mr. Butler, on parking in front of a spiritual house.
He did talk to us about that, Mike, about parking in front of the spiritual center, and he knows that was going on, and he knows that it continued to go on after he told the officers not to do that. So I'm thinking those photographs are great.
Yeah.
Yes.
Keep them coming.
Yeah, we actually send our officers over if they're there. If they're still there, we'll send them immediately to go and speak with the officers. And
wow,
on several occasions it hasn't been cordial, like the response back to our officers. And it's really simply just, hey, just move 20 feet up or 20 feet back. Don't park in the driveway. And it depends on the individual officer. So, but again, that was just an example of many.
Well, I think there's more to the true issue with that. The thing about it is there's a lot of great relationships within Ledyard and Mashantucket. So there are Ledyard residents who often get harassed as they try to enter the reservation, usually at that speed trap. We had employees, we had subcontractors. I've been in meetings before where subcontractors came up to actually meet with a government official of Mashantucket, and on the way in was pulled over, had no clue what was going on, and was asked about criminal behavior, drugs, things like that, in a way where it actually scared some of the people looking to do business, looking to actually just go check out a friend that happens to live on the reservation. So there's more to just the parking. The parking itself, outside of it being a spiritual center, the way that they park is extremely dangerous. They pull right on the side of the road pretty much. So if in a blind spot, so if you ever go to pull in there, you have a real good chance of creating an accident. And they also do the same thing on White Pine, which is probably 90% tribal houses or households, even though they're alleged residents. So the real issue is there's been enough examples of non-tribal members getting pulled over, come to the community in a panic, not sure what's going on, feel harassed, really scared out of their wits, not used to that. As tribal members, you're pretty much used to getting pulled over, ask questions, whatever the case is. It's what you expect. But would you have a non-tribal member trying to enter the reservation? It paints a bad picture on us, and it puts that, in some cases, even attacks a town resident in a very bad, uncomfortable situation. And there's enough examples of that you'd have to assume, though I won't say it's fact, but it happened enough that I assume that is the reason why they're parking there. not necessarily the speed trap, because the speed trap should happen down on the opposite end of Shoeville. I don't have no statistics in front of me, but just living in Legend long enough, I'd assume there's more accidents, more speeding on the Mystic side of Shoeville than there is between 214 and Route 2.
Is the parking still going on at the Spiritual Center by the police?
I haven't seen it in a while.
Yeah,
Okay,
it's been yeah, it's been a while. I mean, things have obviously the times that we're in, as you can imagine, things have been pretty quiet, right, for the world.
What?
True.
Okay. On that note, that would go back to talking about a discussion. It kind of, I want to call it a sit down, but having an opportunity to have Chief Rich come in front of the group, because it's as a public informational for the town in general, just on what the police department does. And then those are great questions though, on, you know, if they're still doing that, or as Councilor Somm said, being able to get pictures, because you shouldn't have to worry about driving down a particular road if you're doing the speed limit and you're not doing anything it's a basis to pull somebody over just because they have an inkling to pull you over. And I'll be the first to say that it happens. It happens, and it's hopefully one of the things that can come out of this committee through education aspect of it is that you kind of change that paradigm so that that's not considered the norm down the road. And I'm too wise to think it's going to change immediately, but I think it's something that can be chunked off of, and that would be the hope through this committee to improve those type of issues, dealing with as we talk with the police department, things of that nature, just to get an understanding of why that happens. But I think, as Councilor Somm said, I think Chief Rich is very aware of it, and the expectation is there would be some changes or modifications in that type of behavior. So that lists that's two issues. Roxanne has been kind enough to put the memorandum of understanding up on the screen. If people would be kind enough to take a quick read of it, and I won't hold this past 8 o'clock. Okay.
Yeah, Michael, on that one, I think directionally it's fine. I think it just if you forward it to us, we'll be able to look at it in more detail. And I mean, again, okay. I think it's pretty straightforward, as you point out.
Those are for me, those are the two primary issues to just kind of get a flavor, because my perception was it was a social service issue and that there was an outstanding, I won't say an outstanding police issue, but a police issue that was concerns relative to with the tribal nation. And does anybody have something that's outside of that? If it's an issue with the school board, the best I got, the influence I got is just as a liaison in the town council, just talking about how they do things. But I'm trying to get a better understanding myself of how the school board does its due. Been here for many years, got 2 kids in the school system, and I'm interested to get a full understanding of exactly how they operate, because I don't actually get it yet.
Yeah, well, and that goes to the point that Danny was making, in that even though, and similar to what Linda just said about the police department, right? Even though you're not over it, there is influence that the town council has, and a budget is a powerful influencer, right? And you can certainly wield that when you're not pleased with what the school board is doing and what the superintendent's not doing. We've had some conversation, as I pointed out earlier, with the superintendent, the new superintendent, or the current superintendent. He's not necessarily new, with mixed resolve. But the board has put together a committee that they've added Crystal to. So maybe Crystal, can you just talk about that at a high level? What was formed and what the intentions are there?
Is also a member of that sub team, and so we've had meetings so far, and we've just begun to scratch the surface of a lot of the issues that are going on in the public system. The conversation was just really everyone sharing their ideas and thoughts on issues that we were all aware of and how we might address them. and move forward for peace sake. There was an effort to focus on every school. There are so many issues that are educational within the level school system that I think we all agree that it's going to take a lot of work, and nothing will probably change overnight, even though we'd all like it to. That was really the gist of the first meeting that we had.
That's I concur, Crystal. There's a lot of work to be done, and it's gonna take a lot of effort, and I think people are gonna have to. I'll probably get yelled at by somebody at some point for saying this, but people are gonna have I'll use the word a come to Jesus moment about realities and how people get treated and how things happen, and turning a blind eye to stuff. I've unfortunately had having kids in the high school and having heard some of the things. They are a little bit disparaging, or I should say concerning, to the point it's like you don't really, it's like really type deal. But I think this new committee they put together is going to flush out a lot of this stuff, and people are going to have to not so much be, I don't want to use the word accountable, but they're going to have to rise up and fix these issues that they know exist, because they're not going to be able to just walk away from it. And that's just the perspective I have of it. So, yes, Councilor Davis.
As the process person in the group, or at least on the council, I would just make one suggestion for future meetings, especially in that this was a special meeting. We probably should stick to one topic, and it should be identified on the agenda, because if someone, for instance, was very interested in the police issue, they would have had no idea we were going to speak about the police issue. So it really should be listed on the agenda. And so perhaps in the future, what some of the committees do that I'm on, or you send out a message to the group, is there anything you'd like to place on the agenda? And then you can speak on those issues. And I think that would be a more, what's the word I want? People will know what we're talking about. The agenda item was broad enough that I don't feel that there's any FOI issues, but it's very easy to slip in that. And as a town council, we have to be concerned about FOI. So this group is a little bit different, but we still have the FOI issue.
Yep, no, I understand completely. And just the great thing about I think this meeting and being very general is that nothing is getting resolved today. All this stuff is going to have to be rehashed a second and probably third time. The MOU will probably be the easiest thing we do, because the groups have already got together and talked about it. They'll be able to get back, look at it, wordsmith it separately and individually with all the parties here, and in the end, end up with a much better product that I always believe we have more eyes looking at it. So that's really the takeaway for tonight, is to take care of that. For me, to make sure we do something, pull out the charter information, see if we can get something that makes it easy for somebody to understand in the charter side. But that's going to be, I think I can stuff that under the memorandum of understanding so that people can see that the food chain that gets you there when you have an issue relative to social services, what that path is. I'm just going to touch all the other classes. So everything else attached to that big tree organization that shows where the social services falls on.
And also, Mike, if it's going to be bring your pet to the meeting, we all need to be informed so we can also participate.
Okay. That being said, I'd like to look for, does anybody have anything they want to add? Because I'm looking to adjourn this meeting, get the information out to people, and we'll put together some minutes on it. So, of course, so it's available. I want to first say, before we get to that point of adjourning, I want to thank everybody for participating. I know it's tough doing it through this Zoom process. I struggle with it every day at work, and it's struggle here too. And trying to figure out, making sure everybody gets a chance to talk. Make sure I don't do all the talking, because if you notice, I will. Me and Dan are brothers.
You gotta wait till we let Jody in.
So that being said, does anybody have anything they want to bring as a future discussion for food for thought? Go ahead, Daniel.
I think history. Before I even get to my recommendation, I just want to thank everybody for their time. This is well overdue, so I do appreciate everybody. I think we're the right people in the room, and there's some really good energy today. I see a lot of opportunity with us on this call. So I look forward to some joint work. I look forward to some more conversations, and I'm hopeful that some of those conversations could hint on some of the history. And not just tribal. I think Ledyard has a lot to be proud about as well. Would you talk about Colonel William Ledyard and the fact that most people don't even know how Ledyard came about as far as naming and what's in honor of. So most people, even the football players, they'll go out there and they know about the sword, but how many people know the story of the sword?
Yeah.
You know, and the significance of never giving up and, you know, really taking that fight in Fort Griswold head on. So even the education of Ledyard and what happened in, what was it, 1786 or so. But when you talk about that history and the establishment of Ledyard through the sword, you'll find that we have a lot of just a lot in common. The tribal history, we have a lot to be proud of. Would you see the resistance within the tribe and the fact that we still remain? You'll probably find a lot within William Ledyard himself that has that similar to a Pequot fight, and the fact that he remained here and was ultimately killed in surrender. But with that information shared, I just think it would give a new sense of pride to Ledyard, especially people that move in, and with the tribe could get positioned to have more time sharing some of our history, some of our contributions, as well as some of our challenges. Not everything's pretty in Mashantucket, but when we could get to the point where we could actually have a voice in a way that could educate some of the town people, I think it will naturally build a level of respect on both sides, just from what the people on both sides have been able to sustain as far as good, healthy communities, especially right now. As you look around the world, we do have our challenges, but we are in a better spot than most. So I do look forward to working with you all, and today's meeting gives me a lot of hope that we can do the right thing by all the children within the town as well as the reservation. So I appreciate everybody's time.
Thank you. That being said, can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
So moved by Councilor Psalms. I got a second.
Second.
Thank you, Councilor Ingalls. With that in mind, I call this meeting adjourned. Thank you, everybody, for coming, and we will schedule another meeting. I'm not sure when. It's tough getting all these people together, finding a time of day to meet, but we're going to figure out getting back with the and figure out what's going to be, how often shall we meet type deal as an add-on to the regular council, our regular meeting, if it plugs in. That being said, everybody have a great night.
Yeah, you as well, Michael. Thank you. You did a great job.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
As well.
Good night.
Good night, everybody. Thank you.
Good night.
Nice.
Okay.
How do I get out?